Okay, hello everyone, I have returned. Thanks for the continued support all this time, and I'll basically try to post when I can. And yeah, let's just see what happens, I suppose. I recently dropped another 2 grams of shrooms, and I am unlocking the secrets of my own mind. I am becoming more and more magical as time progresses. And yeah, shit is just getting crazy. I think in today's world, if you want to survive, you have to become magical. You know what I mean? There's just no, you cannot just be logical or whatever like in the 1970s. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about saturation and competition and just how the world is kind of going to shit and what you can do about it. Everything has become a fucking market these days, right? Consumerism and basically selecting things and buying experiences has permeated every aspect of society. Everything is about choosing something and buying it and consuming it. Everything has become an experience. Relationships, human relationships, romantic relationships, friends even making babies has become fucking consumerism experience. Right nowadays, there are companies that literally offer IQ screening. They screen your embryos for IQ and shit like that. And first, I'm going to talk about why pandering to such a system is actually a bad idea, even if you have hopes of succeeding, which, if I'm being completely honest, most of you don't. But even if you do, it's still a bad idea, and I'm going to explain why. And then after that, I'm going to give you an actual alternative path to what you can do. Because if I just highlight doom and gloom, that's kind of unproductive, right? It's like, yes, the world is shit. What else? You know, what's the next step? Give some actual advice. And I'm going to discuss that later in the video. Long story short, we are all in hell, and most of us are not the demons, okay? Shit is rough. Everything that was seen as crazy and excessive 26 years ago, in the year 2000, the magical year, has now just become expected. Our society is hyper-competitive, and every time you use a strategy to outcompete somebody else, you end up raising the competitive pressure. Our society has increasingly become a winner-takes-it-all kind of society. Competition, or I should say hyper-competition, is much more prioritized than cooperation. And for societies to be stable and exist, for people to be happy in a society, there needs to be a balance between competition and cooperation. If everyone is just competing with each other for a job or for pussy or whatever, that society is going to have increasing levels of destability, and it's just going to fall the fuck apart. You want people to cooperate with each other. You want people to have a reasonable chance at achieving something in life so they can actually build something and contribute back to the society. But nowadays, society has become this winner-takes-all mentality, and this mentality has permeated literally everything. Earlier, it was just the billionaire class, right? 1% of people will become billionaires and super wealthy. But nowadays, in order to just have a good life, you kind of have to be in the 1%. And we see this idea pretty much everywhere in life, as I've explained before. It's even gotten into romantic relationships and things like that. The rat race mentality is really fucking bad, okay? You have to be a rat to win a rat race. This is something many people don't understand. Only rats win a rat race, and the win is always temporary. Every time you use a strategy to get ahead of somebody else, you are just metaphorically passing the burden on. You are running faster as a rat to outrun some other rat, but eventually you will just incentivize all the other rats to run faster. There's always bigger fish to fry, and there's always a rat that is willing to do more than you and run faster than you and outcompete you for the same quote-unquote opportunities. The whole idea is to quit while you're ahead. But the problem is most people don't do that. Most people start running the rat race with good intentions. But what ends up happening is they just get caught up in it. And then the second they see any level of success, if they are lucky enough to, by the way. And when I say success, I just mean materialism. It's not like this shit ever makes you happy either. But anyway, let's say they actually succeed. The success is always temporary, and they just increase the competitive pressure. And in the end, they become a fucking rat. And I'm going to explain what this philosophy really means with a couple examples. First, let's start with the job market. Now, it's no secret that the job market and quote-unquote the economy has just gotten a lot harder in recent years. Now, if you are an enlightened being, you'll know that the economy was fucking fake all the time. But back then, because so much money and resources existed, no one really cared, right? All jobs were fucking fake. But back then, because there was so much money and resources to go around, everybody just played along with the system. But now, you'll start to realize that everything has become saturated. So nowadays, everyone goes to college. Everybody has a degree. And on top of all that, the alternatives are actually destroyed. This is another thing many people forget. If you want a chance at making money, the sad reality is you have to go to college. You kind of have to be in that ruling class bracket. You cannot just be in the trades anymore because that has just gotten harder. The reason people go to college is because all the other alternatives are becoming more and more shit, right? Every time you hear some ruling class politician tell you to go to trade school and get a blue collar job and have more kids than you can afford, understand that those same people who are telling you to become a plumber or a blue collar worker are busting unions. So they are telling you to become a plumber, but at the same time, they are making the lives of plumbers more shit. They are reducing the pay of plumbers, the bargaining power of plumbers, and so on. Just a classic example. And so to some extent, yes, everyone is kind of pushed to go to college because in the system, that is the only way to have a good life. In the system. I'll talk about the alternatives later. And naturally, this makes everything harder. So you might be a smart guy and you might have the bright idea of getting a master's degree to make yourself more competitive in the quote unquote job market, more competitive for the system. You might think, I'll make myself a better resource for the system. I'll make myself more necessary to the system. I'll increase my skills so I can become a more competitive candidate. I can be more useful to the system, and in return, the system will provide me with resources and pussy. This is basically, it's a bit of a joke, but you understand what I'm saying. But the problem is, you are a rat. The problem is, you are just running faster. And what this ends up doing is this raises the competitive pressure. So nowadays, everyone actually had that idea, and master's degrees are rather common. A lot of people have master's degrees, and getting a job nowadays has just become harder for everybody with a bachelor's degree. So you might have done more to outcompete someone else, and this would have worked 20 years ago or 26 years ago, but it is not a sustainable strategy. Sustainable basically means something that can be replicated over and over again across generations. Competing and running faster than all the other rats is not a sustainable strategy. This is going to destabilize society further, and it will only work in the short term. And the probability that it works in the short term is also reducing rapidly. The effectiveness of a strategy decreases the more people use that strategy. And while at the same time, the effort required to use that strategy increases. Classic example is just university. Earlier, a bachelor's degree was enough, but now it's gotten more competitive. Getting into university is harder. You have all these DEI initiatives as well, which I'm not going to talk about. And another thing is the cost. The costs have also increased. The quality of education has decreased. Universities are metaphorically becoming degree printing sites. And just going there is not enough. You have to be competitive in the university. You have to network. You have to be very social. You have to know a lot of people. Basically, you have to do more. You cannot just go there anymore. What was once a competitive choice is slowly becoming a requirement, and even that is not enough. And now people are going to ramp it up to, I don't know, PhDs or something. I don't know what the next step is. Now let's talk about a more autistic example, but nonetheless, I believe this has a lot of relevance in today's day and age. The book Bowling Alone essentially describes how communities in America have just been destroyed. They just don't exist anymore. Humans don't interact with one another. Humans live isolated, consumerist lives, and everything is going to shit. And this book was published 26 years ago. That's why I keep bringing up the number, 26 years ago. In the year 2000, Bowling Alone was published. And holy shit, have things gotten worse. Digital media and the television itself was already very scary. Many people made very scary predictions in the 2000s before the internet ever existed and went mainstream. But nowadays, the internet is a million times worse than the fucking television, right? It's just way more. And nowadays, you have movements like the self-improvement movement, which to some extent is a good thing. But at the same time, this movement just happens to correlate with loneliness, particularly among men, along with some other alarming statistics, such as suicide rates. It seems to be an attempt to control one's own life when everything else in society is genuinely falling the fuck apart. And I can understand things like this to some extent can be a good thing, getting in shape or whatever, improving your health. Yes, I think you should do that. But there is some kind of anxiety and pressure at play here. This does not come out of a vacuum. It is to some extent influenced by society. Many young men feel that they are not enough, and so they feel they have to do these things to get ahead. In South Korea, men actually get plastic surgery to become better job applicants, right? Think about how crazy that is. Because in South Korea, people put photos on their resumes. And if your face looks better, you will stand out compared to the other guy who has the same qualifications. If you want to know where hyper competition will take you, just look at Southeast Asian countries. Look at South Korea, look at Singapore, look at China. This is where the Western world is headed. The Asian people just reach there faster for other reasons, which I'll discuss later. And another funny statistic, apparently, young men are 2 times more likely to be single than young women. Now, I understand there are many complex variables at play here, and I don't want to promote any kind of ideology, but the point is, people like Andrew Tate got popular for a reason. The same thing with all of this looks maxing and black pill stuff. All of these ideologies are mainstream. And the fact that these terms have become a lot more popular itself describes how society is kind of fucked. When many people are talking about looks maxing or going to the gym for the purpose of looking better or skincare even, you know things are going crazy. The American Psycho movie basically made fun of Patrick Bateman for having some kind of skincare routine, but this is literally what people do nowadays. And this brings me on to the next point, which is essentially like no politician wants to talk about this. And I guess this is another scary statistic because if you look at all of these problems, theoretically they could actually be fixed with policy changes. Even if you look at problems of the environment and all that kind of shit, we can actually fix them. But the thing is, no one gives a shit. Right? All of these politicians are just a bunch of fucking snakes. They want the rats to reproduce so they can just eat them, right? The wolves are angry, the sheep are not reproducing. No politician talks about books like Bowling Alone or loneliness or the problems young people face. Everything relates to the economy and the GDP and the corporations or whatever. It's like, who gives a shit about the GDP? Let's be completely honest here. No one talks about these actual solutions and they just go on to blaming people, mostly young men. Young men nowadays are blamed the most. Young men are often called lazy and video gamers, right? Oh, you're just a lazy young man who plays a lot of video games. And to some degree, this kind of has a point. I'm not going to deny that. If you are a teenager and you've been exposed to this online world and you just kind of get sucked into it, you know, you have your video games, you have your TV shows, you have your porn, you have your social media. All of these things are generally bad and they will mess you up. They will take away your drive to do things. To some extent, boredom is an excellent teacher. Boredom is an excellent fuel. Boredom and silence will incentivize you to change your life. It'll incentivize you to do things. It'll incentivize you to take risks. And if you just numb yourself out with video games, porn, TV shows, I think weed has become popular, cannabis, it's been legalized in Western countries. If you numb yourself out using all of these things, you will not have a drive to do anything in life. And then you combine this with adverse childhood experiences, divorce rates are very common, and a son raised by a single mother, that's a fucking recipe for disaster. I'll talk about that later. And combine it with the fact that the education system kind of favors women as well, which again I'll talk about later. All of these things to some extent cause men to metaphorically give up, which to some extent is true, it is valid, but this leads me on to the root cause philosophy. Why are so many people doing self-destructive things to begin with? Heroin was legal for a very long time before it was prohibited. And many people argue that heroin was actually prohibited for political reasons as opposed to actual scientific reasons. The main point I'm trying to make is, why do people engage in these self-destructive behaviors? Why do so many people go into video games and pornography and all this kind of stuff? And to some extent, yes, it is kind of their fault, quote unquote. If we fix things like childhood exposure, if we made that zero, if we made schools more social or whatever, if we taught people social skills, maybe this change could be combated. And to some extent, yes, it is their fault. But also, we need to be honest about society. Society is kind of falling apart. Things are getting harder. People have become too addicted to the system, and the system is just unsustainable. Our way of life is unsustainable, and we have corrupted ourselves, and nature is starting to squeeze. And we see this squeezing in a variety of ways. Think about the fact that birth rates have literally just, essentially, I think birth rates are lower than they've ever been everywhere. India, the most populated country in the whole world, is actually offering incentives for people to have more children. So this problem has even hit India. I think there are only 2 countries in the whole world that have stable birth rates. One is Israel, and the other one is Africa. And the thing is, when African people migrate to another country, like a Western country, the birth rate drops within 1 generation. So the conditions for human life are literally going away. And the point I'm essentially trying to make is, it is not how you were born, it is when you were born, to some extent. Right? Listen, I think you should get smarter. I think you should go to the gym. I think you should do your fucking skincare routine. Improve yourself, improve your financial situation, improve your physical health, do those things. But understand that if you are not getting certain results, it is not necessarily to do with you. It is to do with society, and it is to do with this rat race mentality that all of us are stuck in. And another thing I want to say is, do not become a rat. And okay, after all of this shit is described, what can we do? What can we change? Right? I think all of you will agree that whatever we have nowadays, whatever society is, it's not really good. So what can we do? All right, let's get into that. People chase the illusion of security, which ends up enslaving them. The system wants to extract from you. And back in the day, it would reward you with a lot of stuff. It would entice you. But nowadays, we have become dependent on it. The system wants us to live in a state of fear. And so one tip or advice I would give you is to simply take more risks. Now, this is not an excuse to be reckless. Okay, I'm not saying drink a lot of alcohol and make stupid decisions, like driving. Don't do that. But there's a certain thing of taking risks and having courage which will allow you to live a better life. Which leads me on to the next thing. You need to develop your drive. Everything that numbs you, whether it is TV shows, social media, scrolling, whatever, cut all of that shit out and just resensitize yourself to the real world. And then you will start to realize the problems you have in your own life. And over time, this drive will literally incentivize you to do things. And this ties into the risk-taking factor. You will literally be incentivized to take certain risks, productive risks, which will actually change your life for the better if you just let this drive exist. And now I'm just going to talk about potential ideas, right? Okay, all of the stuff I've discussed so far just seems philosophical to an extent. So what can you actually do? Well, I'm going to recommend some books here, and yes, I'll talk about those books later, but there are certain people who have actually thought about these ideas and come up with certain alternatives, very attractive alternatives. I'm going to leave a list of books and authors in the description, which you can look into. You can look into their philosophies, you can look into their stories, things they have done, and this will give you some ideas of what you can potentially do. Obviously, all of these ideas pertain to detaching from the system, I'm going to be honest. I think this whole self-improvement for the purpose of becoming some rich guy is not really productive, and it has a very low success rate as well. You have to understand, becoming a billionaire is just unlikely. You are not going to become I don't think you're going to become some super financially wealthy person by running some kind of digital nomad drop shipping course. I don't think those are productive. I think there are many other alternatives out there which you should pursue, which will give you a higher success rate and give you more fulfillment. And they're sustainable, meaning your children can use these strategies as well. And right off the bat, these authors are people like Dr. Shannon Hayes, Paul Wheaton, Joel Salatin. All of these are American. I'm sure there are people in other countries, but I don't think they're as famous. I mean, most books are written and published in English, I guess. And these philosophies are a little bit fringe. The system is not really going to promote them. So these books are only available in English. And what these books basically talk about is, they talk about an alternative lifestyle. They talk about wealth that is not necessarily monetary wealth, if you understand what I mean. They talk about how to live a good life without necessarily being some quote-unquote high-value man or being some wealthy playboy American psycho kind of person. They discuss a genuine alternative, and they even discuss the steps you can take to achieve certain alternatives. So I would say explore into those books, and of course stay subscribed to this channel. I will discuss a little bit of those ideologies as well. And the main point I'm telling you is, you guys need to take a fucking risk. Do not chase this illusion of security, because it will enslave you, and the deal is shit. Okay, so even if you do succeed, your success is going to be very short-lived. It's not going to fulfill you. and you're going to be outran by some other fucking rat in a few years. And who knows, the system might actually collapse someday. The likelihood of that happening is also increasing drastically. So that's basically all I got. I'll try to make my videos more entertaining and stuff. But yes, to some extent, I do want them to be productive. I hope you guys can change your lives. You know, the world is changing. And in reality, I don't think most of us are going to, quote unquote, make it. And when I say make it, I don't mean in the financial sense. I mean in the survival sense. This is a little bit of a pattern that happens in nature. And to some extent, yes, I do think you need to submit to nature. You need to believe, you need to have courage. And who knows, maybe nature will reward you. Maybe you might be one of the quote-unquote chosen ones. But yeah, that's it for me. Stay tuned. And yeah, let's see what the fuck happens. Thank you for watching.